So let's dive right into this explainer. And for this one, I want you to imagine you and I are hollow citizens, helpless observers watching a tragic descent into shadow and psychological ruin. Imagine a world entirely stripped of its magic, right? Where we look up at a figure we once revered, this absolute beacon of intellect, only to watch him become the architect of our total subjugation. Today we're exploring a deeply unsettling yet honestly fascinating, grim dark Gothic fable called The Sovereignty of the Cynical Sage. It's a story that blends Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy with Carl Jung's shadow archetype to show us the absolute darkest side of self-actualization.
To kick things off, what happens when the pursuit of ultimate reason creates an ultimate monster? It's a pretty heavy question, isn't it? We normally think of self-improvement, mastering our minds, as this purely heroic journey toward the light. But what if this relentless pursuit of order and logic doesn't actually lead to enlightenment? What if instead it unlocks something completely terrifying? Keep that in the back of your mind as we watch our so-called sage begin his fateful journey.
So, to really understand the sage, we've got to understand the world he lives in first. Section 1. The Psychic and Modern Malaise.
Think of our home as this towering metropolis of stone and steel. It's a literal ivory tower of rationalist supremacy. And yeah, being completely governed by sterile logic and technology means we're physically safe. But look at the devastating hidden cost here. Our entire human experience has been tragically reduced to just data and math. The old, crumbling temple of ancestral myth, ritual, and shared meaning, it's gone, utterly destroyed. So as hollow citizens, sure, we're secure, but our souls are completely starving. We're totally disconnected from the deeper mysteries and sufferings of life. And it's from this spiritually famished void that the sage emerges, initially appearing as our greatest champion.
But his polished exterior hides a much darker truth. Section 2. Shattering the Golden Mask. We all thought his intellectual virtue was this noble quest to perfect our society. But actually, that towering intellect was just a massive psychological barricade, a masquerade of the hollow. Interestingly, modern psychology shows us something strikingly similar. Extreme perfectionism is very often just a trauma response, a defense mechanism used to suppress internal shame. And for the sage, his mask was used to violently suppress his own animalistic urges and chaotic desires. His obsession with forcing strict rules and effortless efficiency onto everything around him, that actually stemmed from a deep desire for what the sources call legal revenge against a reality he couldn't control. He was so terrified of his own internal chaos that he frantically tried to sterilize the outside world.
Eventually, he realizes he has to venture into the wilderness, which is really a symbolic descent into the absolute depths of his own unconscious mind. He has to leave behind the poor reason of our sterile city, that superficial brain and dry mathematics. And instead, he's pulled toward the great reason. This is the raw, rhythmic inner truth, the instinctual wisdom of the body and blood. Because let's face it, you can only suppress your shadow for so long before the wild, chaotic truth you've been denying absolutely demands to be felt.
So, as he ventures deep into this wilderness, picture this incredibly tense scene. The sage is literally debating his former self. He's clinging to his early intellectual arrogance, desperately shouting into the empty woods, "I am the architect of logic, master of the mind, untouched by the dirt of animal desire." It's this dramatic, profound internal struggle. He's trying to use his intellect as a shield against the creeping shadows of his own mind, frantically gripping the sterile supremacy that defined him back in our spiritually bankrupt city. But the wilderness? It doesn't care about his intellect. Here, he confronts a truly terrifying figure from Nietzsche's philosophy, the ugliest man. This figure represents his deeply repressed shadow side, all the grotesque truths he desperately tried to hide. And the ugliest man delivers this chilling retort that just echoes through the sage's mind. You are a masquerade of the hollow Azor, driven by shame and a desperate revenge against the chaos you fear. Boom. This forces the sage to gaze directly into everything he's denied, and it triggers this painful alchemical fragmentation, a total psychological breakdown that completely shatters his polished social persona. The golden mask cracks and just falls away into the dirt.
And that total shattering of his polished persona brings us right to Section 3, Descent into Somatic Wisdom.
Now completely stripped of his mask, his arrogance, and his elite status in our society, the sage is left entirely vulnerable. To survive this dark night of the soul, he has to undergo a crucial Nietzschean concept, the Untergang. This is a deliberate downgoing or self-destruction that is absolutely required if you want to evolve. He can't just magically rise to a higher level of consciousness. He literally has to be destroyed first. He has to willingly sink into the very psychological chaos he spent his entire life running away from.
So how does he actually survive this downgoing? Well, through what's known as the alchemical dance. Let's walk through these steps together, because it shows how transformation happens not by seeking the light, but by fully embracing your inner demons. Step 1. He completely abandons the superficial brain, that poor reason. Step 2. He finally starts listening to the instinctual wisdom of the unconscious, the great reason. Step 3. He stops judging the darkness within him. He just accepts his resentment, his shame, his animal urges. And Step 4. This is the real alchemy right here. He converts the poison of that repressed chaos into raw fuel. He integrates his shadow, claiming its immense, dark power entirely for himself.
Having completely integrated those darkest depths, the sage's psychological evolution is done. Section 4. The cynical sovereign returns. But the result of this evolution? It's absolutely horrifying for those of us waiting back in the city. It completely perverts the classic hero's journey we're all so used to. Normally, you expect the hero's return, right? The protagonist comes back from the underworld with some magical gift or cure to heal their ailing community. But our cynical sage brings back a tainted boon. He doesn't return with a cure at all. Instead, he keeps his newfound psychological integration and profound insights as a private weapon. He uses his deep understanding of human vulnerability to claim absolute mastery over everyone else. This is the dawn of his cynical sovereignty.
Out there in the wilderness, he achieved what Nietzsche called the holy yeah. He fiercely accepted his own dark and chaotic nature, but he used it to author a meaning built entirely upon an unyielding, cold sovereignty. He becomes the architect of the void. He realizes that, hey, in a society completely devoid of deeper spiritual meaning, the one who fully commands both extreme intellect and primal darkness can rule without any limits whatsoever. He's constructed a terrifying new mask, forged directly from his fully integrated psyche.
Just imagine the chilling internal monologue of the sage during this final cold realization. Contrast this with his early arrogance, where he just thought he was a master of logic. Now he tells himself, my intellect was but a brittle shield. Now my darkness is the absolute sword. I do not return to save this hallowed wasteland, but to reign as its god. We watched him leave as a man of sterile logic, and now we're watching him return as a tyrant. A fully actualized monster who sees our hollow society not as a community to be healed, but as a blank canvas for his absolute domination.
And so, looking out from the perspective of a hollow citizen trapped in this stone and steel city, observing this tragic descent into psychological ruin, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative thought. And this applies directly to anyone seeking relentless optimization and mastery today. In your own pursuit of self-actualization and effortless efficiency, are you building a soul or just paving the way for your own inner tyrant? It's a terrifying question, for sure, but an absolutely essential one to ask if we want to avoid the path of the cynical sage. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, keep looking past the superficial logic, and I'll catch you in the next one.